Here's the thing about Baptists, though, before we get on this subject, that really pokes at me, is that there is one of the largest concentration of Freemasonic pastors are in the Baptist church.
I agree with you 1,000% that there is a gigantic number of Southern Baptist Convention churches that are eat up with Freemasons. I mean, completely. I mean, that the Freemasons find a very warm welcome within the Southern Baptist Convention. John, before I got called to preach, before I felt like God wanted me to go in the ministry, I was going to go into law enforcement. And so I learned a little bit of criminal justice. I've always been a fan of social psychology. I've always enjoyed watching, studying how people behave. And people have to really understand that there are people out there who are legit, true psychopaths. And they are predators. And they're never going to stop doing what they do.
There's something there. They understand humanity's weaknesses and they use it against them. There's something dark there, something more ancient than ourselves there.
There's something. There is the independent fundamental Baptist movement, but our church is basically just its own thing, So I guess technically we could say that I am non-denominational in the national sense, but the theological positions I take, of course, I'm a Baptist. I do believe in the Baptist view. I guess we could call it that. And then our church is independent. And then I like the term fundamentalist for my basically what that means is that we take a strong stand for the core essentials of Christianity, and we don't fellowship with anybody who doesn't. And we try to be a separatist away from false teachers and false teachings. And so basically, I call myself an independent fundamentalist Baptist, and I think that really encapsulates basically where I'm coming from.
So to somebody that has no idea what that is, I mean, I grew up in a Baptist church. I even went to Bible college for a short time. And so I grew up in all of this stuff. My dad had his doctorate and stuff like that. He was a minister slash principal, and then even a superintendent of a larger system of schools in Texas. And so I grew up around a lot of that stuff. So I know a little bit about that. But for those of our listeners, what does that mean? So, like for you, what does it mean to be all of those things combined? Because I would say that 90% of my audience may not even understand what that means.
Well, okay. So you have, if you could put it, three big groups. You got the Catholic, you got Protestant, and then I would say the Baptist is a third group. Baptists are not, never have come out of Rome, never been affiliated with Rome. And that's a big debate. Some people say Baptists are Protestants. I would differ on that. And so Baptists basically believe that the Bible is the authority on all matters of faith and practice. We don't have any creeds or catechisms or nothing like that. We just practice what the Bible says, try to be a purist in that sense. And then also, we believe in two offices. There's the pastor, there's the deacon. We believe also in the mode of baptism being that it is for adult believers. And when I say adult, what I mean is like, people of age who know that they've received Christ their Savior. We don't baptize infants or anything like that. And then the autonomy of the local church. We don't believe in we don't have a Vatican. We don't have a Mecca that we look to. We are all individual churches. And so that's in a nutshell what Baptist is. Our church, of course, is independent, which means we're not in any fellowships or any associations or anything like that. We are just basically our own thing, Lighthouse Baptist Church, Shepherdsville, Kentucky. And then also fundamentalist is a term that basically it was born out of the fundamentalist modernist controversy of the 1920s. And basically what that means is okay, we don't use worldly methods to reach people, and we also don't fellowship with false teachers. For example, let's say there was a crusade in Shepherdsville, Kentucky, and they wanted us to participate, and then there was a man on the platform who denied the deity of Jesus Christ, something along the lines of what Bill Johnson would do from Bethel Church, who says that Jesus wasn't God. He was just a man in right relationship with God, and that's therefore he could do all the miracles that he did because of that. We would not fellowship with that. We would not participate with that. And not only that, we wouldn't even sing any music produced by those people. So that's what a fundamentalist is. We separate. We try to keep the church pure. We try to keep the doctrine right. And, if it got some guy preaching some really bizarre just damnable heresy stuff, we don't touch the guy. Guys like TD Jake, Stephen Furtick, Bill Johnson, a lot of the Hillsong crowd, we don't have anything to do with them. We label them as false teachers and back away from that. And we don't even use their songs. And that's kind of how we operate. So,
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize that they're using a lot of their ideology and music even in their own churches. They really don't get that. But I agree with you on those people. I think there's a lot of those people that are completely off the rail, like NAR and all of that, that I fear that they're inducting people into stuff that's even worse, worse than what we can even imagine. And I know you've done documentaries about this, which is one of the reasons I had you on, because I've actually watched most of your films when it comes to the Adam series, and I'm excited about the new documentary that you're producing, because this is one of the reasons that I exited the church movement. When I say church movement, I don't mean the real church, the body of Christ. I mean the actual established church, because there's a lot of inconsistencies, there's a lot of hypocrisies. This subject being one of them, but the absolute cover up of wrongdoing within the system of the church. Now, I have my reasons to why I won't be involved in any church that does certain things that I consider meshing with the pagan world. These are things that I consider things that I don't want to be a part of. Now, I have gone to churches before, and I've been to the point to where it's like, okay, a certain time of year comes around, it's time for me to just kind of go and do my own thing for a while, because I already know that there's going to be disagreements. Because and you know how it is, because you've gone to probably different churches. As soon as somebody knows you're talented in one area or another, they're going to try to get you involved in everything that they have going on. And so when there's a disagreement about a certain thing that you're just not willing yourself to align with, then you can't really be a part of that assembly, it seems like. And that's happened a lot to me. So that's one of the reasons I've kind of exited out of that. But also the cover-ups, and that seems to be universal in all denominations, whether it's Baptist or not. Here's the thing about Baptists, though, before we get on this subject, that really kind of pokes at me, is that there is one of the largest concentration of Freemasonic pastors are in the Baptist church. A very large percentage at one time was in the Baptist church. I'm not sure what it is now, whether that's just covers Southern Baptist, Independent Baptist, or whatever. I'm not 100% sure of either, but that seems to be one of the biggest issues with that I have with the Baptist church, I think.
well, okay, we have to be very clear on what we mean by the Baptist church. I'm not really even sure there is a such thing as the Baptist church. There's the Catholic Church, but Baptist churches are their own thing, and they kind of hold to this view of Baptist doctrine, but then they all kind of float into different fellowships and all that kind of stuff. I agree with you 1,000% that there is a gigantic number of Southern Baptist Convention churches that are eat up with Freemasons. I mean, completely. I mean, that the Freemasons find a very warm welcome within the Southern Baptist Convention.
Hmm.
Independent Fundamental Baptist, it's a whole different world, and so even in the word Baptist, there's different shades. There's the Free Wills, there's the General Baptist, there's the Independent Fundamental Baptist, there's the Southern Baptist, there's the so there's multiple categories underneath the umbrella of what we would call Baptist. And the Independent Fundamental Baptist have been well known for decades and decades of taking a ferocious stand against Freemasonry. And so, and that's not something that really is put out there a whole lot, but it needs to be well known.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify it too, just because I know that there's going to be listeners that know this information. They're going to be like, well, the Baptist church has way more free, what is he talking about? So I'm glad you clarified that. So
yeah, well, it's true, but not every circle of Baptist are that way. I would say that is the most prominent. Okay, let's just be real. Freemasons are everywhere. Okay, there's Democrat Freemasons, Republican Freemasons. Everywhere you go, there's probably gonna be a Freemason, because they're just so prominent. They're just everywhere. And so I'm sure there's probably a few that sneak into an Independent Baptist church every now and then. But the question is, where are they most welcomed to, and where do they find the most comfortable place to hide? Well, Southern Baptist churches, they're all in those things.
Yeah.
Whereas independent fundamental Baptist churches, I preached against the Freemasons, probably 3 months ago at our church. And, we got a lady who goes to our church. Her husband's a Freemason, but he doesn't come. And he just doesn't like it for some reason. And so,
Yeah, I
and that's
wonder
a good
why.
sign. That's a good
Yeah.
sign. So, but yeah, for the Southern, and this is why I tell people to leave the Southern Baptist Convention and become an independent Baptist church, is because multiple doctrinal issues, but the Freemason issue is a huge deal. And I am absolutely not comfortable with any of that stuff. And I think they all need to get out of those kind of churches. But yes, you're correct. But that is not as prominent. I would say it's like significantly less in independent fundamental Baptist churches. There may be a few, but largely we preach against those.
Well, very cool. Yeah, and it is important to mention those distinctions, and it is important to know too that some churches are independent, because a lot of people don't realize that. Some of the churches I've been to, it's basically this: you have a board of people that sit over it, and if they don't like where it's going, whether it's biblical, non-biblical, whatever, they have the power to just boom replace another preacher there in the system. And I'm sure it's like that at every church. And I've read books about men who have been in the you know pulpit for their entire life and have gone through 20 churches, been moved from church to church because of one issue or another. And there's always that drama and political drama that goes on with those things. But it is important to note there are ones that are independent that can actually make decisions that aren't based off of a hierarchy of possibly Freemasonic men way at the top. And, there's a lot of issues with dispensationalism as well that has, in my opinion, really taken the church on a wild ride. But that's another topic for another time that we'll have to talk about. I know we may, and I know that listeners, we may and may not disagree on everything, me and Spencer, but I do believe that Spencer loves the Lord. I do believe that he's trying to reach people, and I believe that I'm trying to do that too. So, like, I'm willing to have a sit down conversation with Spencer on these subjects that I wouldn't have with everybody. I mean, I've had people on the show before that I'm like, man, this guy, I don't know that I would want him talking about anything to do with God at all. But Spencer's not like that. I really do believe that you have a passion for reaching people for God that you wouldn't do what you do if you didn't, I don't think. So I'm glad to
Thank you.
talk about it. And so explain to me a little bit about why you decided to create a documentary that I'm sure that many of your peers don't want you to put out. Explain that to me, and then explain to me what it's going to be about.
Okay, so we've got this film coming up called Disclosure, and basically, there has been I've seen a philosophy of ministry that has been promoted in some circles of Baptist churches that I find to be very dangerous. And what it is the idea that if we should restore people back to fellowship, no matter what they've done. And on the surface, that sounds good, but you have to understand that there are some men who will do heinous things, who will take advantage of that, and they're counting on you to love and to be gracious to them while they just do perverse things over and over and over and over again. It's the same mentality that the charismatic church has. We're going to come in and we're going to say something heinous. We're going to say something really bad. And we're just counting on you guys to be loving and kind to me because I'm just a poor misguided little victim over here. And no, you have to practice church discipline on predators and on unrepentant, wicked men. And I think grace has limits, if I put it that way. Especially like if you mess with a kid, there's no grace. You're done. Go away, go to prison, and I'll help you. I'll help you go to prison. Probably you deserve a lot worse than that, but that's besides the point. And so what has happened is that some men have promoted that. And then also there has been some Baptist preachers, and we'll call them out, who have thought that the best way to handle some sort of immoral scandal is to just take the guy who committed the scandal and just ship him across the country. And therefore it's like we just, problem's over with. But in the age of social media now, You can't do that anymore. And
The
basically, what we're
same
going to,
same thing to the Catholic Church
yeah,
basically is done. Yeah.
yeah, same thing. And some Baptist churches have done that. Now, thankfully, these guys are the minority. And I want to point that out and say that these guys are not everybody. These are just a small handful of dudes, but they're hurting people when they do this.
Mm.
And what you do, okay, you got like, let's just say hypothetically, you got some 15-year-old girl and the 25-year-old youth pastor does something to her that he never should have done.
Mm.
Well, what do? Well, you ship the 25-year-old youth pastor across the country, and then you tell the girl to shut up. You tell her, just forgive him, love him, pray for him, just forgive him,
Mm.
and we're all going to just move ahead, move forward. That's not biblical at all. That guy
Not
needs to
at
be in
all.
jail. He needs to be disciplined publicly from the church. And what has happened is these pastors, some of them have the mindset, okay, this is going to blow up my church. I've spent 20 years building this thing, and this idiot youth pastor did something stupid, and he's going to completely destroy my church. And so they kick into self-preservation mode, and they try to just basically cover it up in
Mm.
a sense. And the problem is that when you cover it up in the short term, you kind of fix it, but what you do is you create a long-term problem.
Mm.
And rather have it's better to have some short-term pain, which is bring it out and say, this is what happened. We're going to publicly discipline him. We're going to call the cops. Allow the short-term pain to happen so that you can have long-term benefit from it. And I think what we've done, some Baptist men have become pragmatists in their mind. They just think, well, whatever I have to do to keep the church going is the right thing. And, that has resulted in them covering up some serious problems. And
Mm.
I'm here to call it out, say this is hurting the testimony of churches. This is hurting young people. This is hurting families, and it needs to stop. We need to repent of this philosophy of ministry. And we're going to name some names. We're going to talk about some people that have done this, and hopefully, if you could say that there's a body, okay, the Baptist world has a body. There is this tiny tumor in the middle of it, and what we're going to do is we're going to point to the tumor. We're going to say this is going to kill us if this grows, and we're going to try to cut it out and get it gone so that the body can be healthy again. And
Mm.
that's the goal of all this. And I think it's going to be a help. It's going to be a good thing. And I'm praying that God gets glory out of it. So I really feel like the Lord's led me to do this. The Lord gave me some funding to do it. And for that, I'm glad. And so it needs to happen. And I know that there's going to be some people who are going to say, there is no problem. We don't have this issue. We don't have this. Well, some guys do. Some guys, maybe you don't, but some other guys do. And we're going to talk about it and just let the chips fall where they may and say, amen. That's what we're going to do, bro.
Have you got any threats yet?
Oh, just passive aggressive, if sissy stuff,
Yeah.
These guys, well, he shouldn't be saying that. You're going to hurt your ministry. Well, no, I'm not. Any part of my ministry that is surviving because I am turning my head at abuse in the church, any aspect of my ministry that is still alive because of that can die. And I don't care. I want to be right with God. I'm not scared of these pint-sized politicians pretending to be preachers. I am going to stand for what's right. I'm going to stand in my day, use my voice, flex my influence on a evil that we all can agree is evil, and we're just going to let the fur fly and just go on with our lives.
That sounds good, man. That sounds like something that needs to happen. I mean, really, it needs to happen. It needed to happen a long time ago, and the fact that you're able to take it on and recognize some of these patterns. How did you find out about some of these people that were involved? I know you probably know different pastors. I'm sure there's a conventions that people go to that are involved in that. But how did you come to find out that they're doing this and covering it up?
Well, you just kind of just read stuff on the internet and you kind of put things together. And it took me really kind of a long time to see it. I came to the Lord in 2001 and was saved. I was 18 years old. I just graduated from high school in Atlanta, and I got saved in an Independent Baptist Church in Georgia. And a lot of the men who promoted this philosophy were dead before I even, got saved. I never knew them. I never was around them. And but I knew that the people that they had taught how to be this way. And so just kind of going back, watching old videos, watching old news reports, reading old articles, and kind of seeing, where they were versus where some of the things are now. It kind of makes sense why there's some problems.
Mhm.
And, and I like to study. I like pattern recognition. I can kind of see the big picture stuff. Um, and that's what I've enjoyed doing. That's what really all of my documentaries are about, just stepping back and seeing the big picture on all this stuff. And I'm just telling you, I think in some circles there's a problem. And there's been a handful of wicked men who call themselves Baptist that have taken advantage of people. It's kind of like Acts chapter 20. Paul told the Ephesian elders that men shall arise amongst you speaking perverse things. Well, that word perverse is where we get the word pervert. There's going to be some men that are going to say some very weird, theologically perverted things, and they're going to claim to be you. Okay. Now, it doesn't matter what circle you're in. That's going to happen to there's good people who are Methodists. There's good people who are Presbyterian. There's good people who are Baptists, but there's also bad people in every single one of those circles as well. Years ago, I lived in St. Louis, and there was a guy who was the youth pastor at a church that I went to. And I moved just a little bit away to go help a church plant over in Illinois. And the guy's name was Danny Delaney. He was the youth pastor. Well, not long after I left, it came out that Danny Delaney was having some sort of very inappropriate texting relationship with a teenage girl. Like it was demented.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, it was X-rated stuff they were sending, or he was sending to her, and it was bad. It all came out. Mom and dad didn't want to press charges on him. And he left. He went back to Louisville, Kentucky. This is where he's from. He lived here in Louisville, Kentucky. That's where I live now. And so he just kind of went off the grid for about a year. And then next thing I know, I mean, somebody emails me and says, "Did you know Danny Delaney took a church in North Carolina?" And I said, "No, I had no idea." And turns out what he did was he just moved across the country. I don't know if he just put a spin on what he did or just diminished what he did or whatever. But, he apparently was able to gain the confidence of another preacher. Guy's name is Gammons, and they're in North Carolina, and was able to give him a recommendation for him to go take this church. And now this guy's pastoring a church again. And I'm calling nonsense on that. That's not biblical. The man's not blameless. And then I got to look and asking other people, and there's other people that have suggested to me that this is not the first time that he's done something like this. So what you have is a man who has, that I was told has a problem with stuff like this. And now what he does is, and there's been several men that have done this. They just say, "Well, yeah, God forgave me. I repent. Sorry. It should have never happened. Let me go move to a different time zone and start over." And then they somehow, some way, they find their way back into the ministry. And
These
the
pastors just let the wolves in the pens. Bring the wolf over here. Let's let it in this pen. Let's let it in this pen instead of the shepherd killing that wolf from the gate.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's just, when it comes to this stuff, there is a difference between a guy who messes up and falls to temptation versus a guy who perpetually over and over has done this again and again and again.
For sure.
The first guy, the guy who messed up, he'll repent and he'll beg God's forgiveness. He'll beg the church's forgiveness. He'll beg the family's forgiveness. He'll try to beg his wife's forgiveness, and he will accept all forms of church discipline and whatever. He will repent. The other guy just says, "Yeah, I messed up, whatever. I'm just going to go start over. I keep doing the same thing over and over again." One time is bad enough, but if you do it twice, it's a pattern. You do it 3 times, it's a pattern. There's one guy that he's the son of a very famous independent Baptist preacher. Everywhere he's gone, he's moved probably about 4 or 5 different places. Everywhere he's gone, he has had affairs. He has had, all kinds of stuff. And so it's a pattern for this guy. He does it over and over and over again. And there comes a point where grace is not even a thing anymore. You're not dealing with a wayward sheep. You're dealing with a wolf. And the only way to deal with wolves is to shoot wolves.
Mm-hmm.
And that you don't pet wolves. You don't train a wolf to be a sheep. A wolf is a wolf.
Mm-hmm.
You protect the sheep from the wolves.
Yep.
And that's the thing that needs to be said. That's what everybody needs to talk about. We need to point at these wolves and say, you're a wolf, you're a predator, get out of here, you're not welcome here anymore. And really, I'm going to encourage victims to publicly name the man who abused them. Name him, say it, put him out
Mm-hmm.
there. Because what happens is that a wolf will prey on a sheep, and then it gets to the some pastors, the way they deal with it is, we don't want to hurt the reputation of the church. We don't be known as a place that this is where wolves are. So for the good of the ministry, let's just keep it all quiet. And these young ladies are told just to bear it silently, and just forgive him, and let's all move on together. Well, no, you need to shame him. You need to publicly name him so that it doesn't happen again. Because these predators, and John, before I got called to preach, before I felt like God wanted me to go in the ministry, I was going to go into law enforcement. And so I learned a little bit of criminal justice. I've always been a fan of social psychology. I've always enjoyed watching, studying how people behave. And people have to really understand that there are people out there who are legit, true psychopaths.
Mm-hmm.
And they are predators. And they're never going to stop doing what they do. And these people are not unlikable people. They're very charismatic, very winsome guys, very likable guys. I think if the average person met the average psychopath, they'd walk away saying, "I love that guy. He's amazing," because they are very
What a
likable
nice guy.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, you look like Ted Bundy had when he was on death row. There were women writing him love letters right and left. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so these people have a power over people. I don't know. Maybe there's something supernatural to it, but these people have a power over
What
folks.
what does the
Where,
Bible say? Twice dead, plucked up, or something like that,
yeah,
like wandering stars.
yeah,
There's something there. They understand humanity's weaknesses and they use it
mm-hmm.
against them. I mean, there's something dark there, something more ancient than ourselves there, in
There's
my opinion.
something. There
Yeah.
is something there, and I don't claim to understand it, but there is something there. And I think I think the Antichrist will have some sort of power. I think I mean, all these false prophets had some sort of power on them, and the power of likability, the power of influence. I don't know what it is, but you're right. And these guys, you know, like I said, there's a difference between a guy who's a believer in Christ who messes up, falls into sexual sin and temptation. We see that in like First Corinthians. There was a guy who, had his father's wife. Okay, so Christians are capable of doing this stuff. But what happened is that the guy repented and he got right with God. He didn't just move to another church. He didn't move from the church of Corinth to the church of Ephesus and do the same thing all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's when it becomes a pattern. That's when he becomes a wolf, and that's when he needs to be dealt with as a wolf. Get out of the church. You're disciplined. You're gone, and we're going to use the power of the internet to let everybody know this is what you do. So
Absolutely.
to protect other people.
And that's important, man. I think that if there's so many people that distrust the church and distrust God because of this issue right here, one person can really harm so many people. I had two friends that were, both of them were sex crimes detectives on the Evansville police force. And some of the victims and some of the perpetrators would have abused 30 to 40 people before they ever were caught. And he said that almost every single one of the people that he arrested and got their confession had all been abused in this manner when they were children as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like a recruiting process for some kind of horrifying thing. And I know that that's not exactly what you're talking about there, but there is that element as well, especially when you're dealing with like the Catholic Church. This is a huge element of this, whatever you want to call it. I know we got to be careful what we say on the internet, but people know what we're talking about. We're not children here, but this kind of stuff is too prevalent, too well designed almost and well thought out, because what you're saying here is like, yeah, we don't call them out because of this, but what if it's even deeper than that? What if there's a more demonic element to the idea of covering this stuff up and spreading them out over places. And I think you've
Mhm.
covered a little bit of some of that ideology in your Third Adam series.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about that because I think it's deeper than just, oh, we don't want to talk about this because we don't want to expose it and draw attention to the church. I think it's deeper than that. I think it's
Mhm.
like this is the design. This is how it's done. We go to the places where the sheep are. We
Mhm.
corrupt the sheep. We devour the sheep. We do it, and we just keep getting moved around.
Mhm.
Um, so,
Right, right. Well, I think okay, if you study cult leaders, all of them have the same MO. They'll move to a big city where there's lots of people, and then they prey off the vulnerable, and they prey off the poor, and they prey off the weak.
mhm,
And they're very narcissistic. They're very self-centered. I think most of them are legit psychopaths, sociopaths, and Jim Jones to me has always been the one that's like the poster child for this because
mhm,
he was a word of faith preacher. He was a political leftist, like a social justice kind of guy. He was, but he, believed in signs and wonders. And I mean, I don't know about you, Brother John, but if my pastor told me, said, "Hey, let's all move to Guyana and start a town, and we're going to name the town after me. I want you to pack up everything," I would think something was up.
I would too,
Um,
man. People join cults though, and it's surprising to me some of the people that do it. I know people that have been in a part of cults, and I even warned them. I'm like, "That's a cult," and they went anyway. And I'm just like, "What is going on here?" But anyways, yeah.
well, yeah. See, I talked to somebody years ago who got into the occult, and this woman, she just told me her full testimony story. She said she had all kinds of wild stories, and I can share some of those with you. But she said lots of times when you get into something like that, you don't realize what you're getting into until it's too late.
hmm
You're already up to your eyeballs in it, and then it dawns on you this is not a good thing. And that's a very hard thing for people to see. And when they get to that point, they get in something called the fog, which is FOG, the fear, obligation, and guilt of leaving it. The fear of leaving and starting all over, the obligation of, well, these people have helped me, they've been nice to me, I can't just walk away from people that have been nice to me. And then the guilt of, if I leave, there's other people in here that I'm gonna be leaving behind.
hmm
And so the fog is what keeps people in. And then so that's always there's a wave of emotions and emotional things you got to go through just to step out of a cult. But
Yeah.
I think the answer to that is we got to preach good doctrine on the front end. We've got to let people know what a wolf is and call a wolf out and say this is not good, and warn people not to fall in these pits. And people accuse me all the time and say, "Spencer, you're always negative. You're always telling us don't do this, don't do that, don't do that." Well, there's a God in the Bible that gave you thou shalt nots.
hmm
And the Ten Commandments are, pretty negative if you want to put it that way. Was God negative? Was God mean? Was God divisive and pharisaical? I mean, what are we talking about here? So there are, I'm going to drive here in the road. I got to go to a funeral here in a little while. That's why I'm dressed a little bit nice today. But as you go down the road, there are lines in the road that say, don't cross this line, don't go here. And so there's boundaries and parameters that you have to operate within on the road. And so that's restrictive, and that's telling you don't do that. And I think that's what doctrine is. Doctrine is God exists within these parameters here, and anything outside of that is error. And so I think if we can just keep people at the end of Third Adam 4, I drew a red box on my whiteboard, and I say the box is doctrine. Stay within the box. And all of these charismatic mystics and occultists and all this stuff say, well, God exists outside of the box. Go open your mind and come outside of the chains of religion. That's mysticism. And that is how the occult operates. That's
hmm
basically what Gnosticism is that the idea of we're going to break free from our human limitations.
Yeah.
And so I tell folks, stay in the box. The cure for basically everything is good doctrine.
hmm
And so if we'll preach good doctrine, stand by good doctrine, feed the people good doctrine so that they can know good doctrine, then a lot of the stuff will just take care of itself. I mean, I just put out a book I got right here called the Handbook of Modern Heretics, and this is our book. It's available on Amazon now, but it won't focus on that. But I just go through and I say there's basically about 20 something different cults that are alive today that are going to pull you away from biblical doctrine, and and Catholic churches in there. And I even talk about independent fundamental Baptists. I said independent fundamental Baptists, if they're doing these certain things, this is the mark of a cult. And so if you go to a church that claims to be independent fundamental Baptist and they're doing these things, don't go in there. It's a mess. And so but that's what we're trying to do. And I think that's the answer to all this. So we got a whole chapter on Freemasonry and Mormonism and the Catholic Church. It's a lot of fun. So
Oh yeah, it's a blast, man. Yeah, and I live out in the country, and so for me, it's like I told you before, I try to find common ground with people, but there are certain denominations, there are certain things that I just can't find common ground with, and the super
yeah.
charismatic stuff is definitely one of them. I mean, um, I remember being a new believer, and when I say new believer, let's put it this way: I've memorized large portions of the Bible as a child, and going through school and doing all that. I memorized. I went through. I've learned about it different, the doctrines and ideas. But when I went off track really heavily, and this is part of an interesting story that I'll be
Mhm.
because I'm interviewing a guy that went to Bible college with me. But just to kind of make a long and short of the story, is I was really seeking God like super hardcore when I was going to Bible college. I was like just, asking God, what do you want me to do? I ended up getting kicked out of Bible college. Well, the situation is like a situation similar to what you were talking about, a predator being moved around. Our predator was the dean of students, and I'm going to talk about that, let him tell the story because he was like the prey or the target of this dean of students that we had. Like he
Mhm.
didn't, thankfully, it didn't, get into him and destroy him. But so at that time, I got kicked out because I was kind of a obstacle in the path of this predator.
Mhm.
Me and my cousin both were because we like to hang out with this friend of ours and do all this
Yeah.
stuff, and he didn't like that. So, anyways, we get kicked out, and so I take that as like a sign. God, you could care less about me. Like
Mhm.
obviously, you're not real, or you don't care about me. So I just went off on the track. I did horrible things. Ended up in jail. Ended up you know with
Mhm.
drug addictions and all those different things. And
Mhm.
in 2010, when I was in a jail cell, I had the revelation of Christ that he did care about me and that he was real and he saved my soul. And there's a long story that goes along with that. But um, when that happened, it changed me in a big way. But I understood that a lot of the churches that I had been to, because of all the things that I'd seen, had a lot of hypocrisies and they had a lot of
Mhm.
things in them that would cause me to believe that I might be better off just not getting involved in the politics of any particular church, maybe just be a missionary to many of them. And I've been inside churches, cast demons out of people inside other people's churches. I've been, done different things that in these other places that I feel like I was supposed to be there, but there's just something, man. There's something about the majority of churches that make them unbearable for somebody with the Spirit of God to be there. And I've
Mhm.
seen I've seen this at a lot of big churches, especially. You just go there and you just feel that this is a placebo. This isn't the Spirit of God. This is something off with that. Where do you think the root of that is? These big mega churches that are just designed to just suck the money out of people and really not offer any spiritual growth to people.
Okay. Well, really, there's a word in the, and I use the King James Bible. Um, let's see here. There's the word merchandise, and false teachers always trying to make merchandise out of you with feigned words. 2 Peter 2:3, and through covetousness shall they with feigned words make merchandise of you, whose judgment now of a long time lingereth not, and their damnation slumbereth not. I think that the church today, and when I speak about the church, I'm speaking in a very broad sense of evangelicalism and stuff like that. I think it's become a business, and it's really not become about what's right. What does the Bible say? It's not about truth. It's not about doctrine. It's all about money. And
That
the
verse
love
you
of
read is kind of cryptic too. It almost gives like the impression that we're talking about something that has had it coming for a while.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's almost like, hey, we've had this thing coming. It's been coming for a while,
Mhm.
and they've had their damnation coming. Almost like it's an older. entity behind it or something. I don't know. It's weird.
Well, it could be, but these people, no question, are ministers of Satan. They are indwelt with Satan. They do not have the Holy Spirit living inside of them. There's another spirit, another Jesus, another gospel being preached by these people, and the motive behind it is money, power, and fame. And they're trying to make merchandise of you. I think the classic case of this and is Kenneth Copeland.
Mm. Oh
The
yeah.
reason people follow Kenneth Copeland is because they believe that Kenneth Copeland is uber rich. They look at what he has and he likes to flaunt what he has. And Kenneth Copeland's message is if you follow my theology, you can have what I have. And so really there's a greed there. And those people are and really it's the perfect con for Kenneth Copeland, because Kenneth Copeland says if you give me money, God will turn around and give you money. And and I think if I was Satan, I think I would allow that to work. I would let a man who gave Kenneth Copeland $100, I turn around and give him $100 back. I don't know if Satan has that kind of power to do that kind of stuff, but I think I would allow that to work. I think the esoteric terms for it is like money magic,
Hmm.
and that's what they're practicing is money magic, and and people get caught up in that and thinking, man, I could have $1 million. I'm going to give to Kenneth Copeland. I'm going to plant a seed of faith in Kenneth Copeland's ministry. Same with Jesse Duplantis. Same with Creflo Dollar. Same with all these big name guys that if you plant a seed of faith in my ministry, then God will turn around and bless you and give you 10 times more back. And they prey off of poor people. This is
Hmm.
why they go to Africa all the time, is because the poor folks in Africa, they have nothing. And so these guys come in and say, look, look at my nice suit. Look at what I'm wearing. Look at the nice car I got. If you'll just give me your money, then you can have what I have. Well, I mean, if you're African and you're sick of being broke, you're going to go for that. You'll scratch up whatever you can find, and they'll give millions of dollars to these people. And there are men out there that are literally preying off the naivety and the destituteness of these people. And that's why widows give money to Kenneth Copeland, because they're starving to death, eating cat food in some apartment somewhere, and think, well, I need to boost my lifestyle a little bit. So I'm gonna give Kenneth Copeland some money in faith and call it a seed of faith. And Kenneth Copeland gets the money, goes, lives lavish lifestyle. This woman, she's even more broke now. And it's the perfect con. But I think a lot of church today, to answer your question, a lot of churches today they don't care about your soul, they don't care about your family. They see you as a giving unit, and they see you as an object of their exaltation. You're just another seat in the pew. A preacher years ago in Michigan told me this. He said, if you go study the psychology of a serial killer, you'll find that the psychology of a serial killer is almost the same as the psychology of a word of faith preacher. A serial killer will use you and abuse you as an object of his fascination, whereas a word of faith preacher will use you and abuse you as an object of his exaltation.
Mm.
And it's basically the same thing. They're hurting you. I think a lot of these people are psychopaths. To be honest with
You
you.
gotta be, man, to strip, especially stripping poor people in a third world country
Mhm.
of the little change they have, man. You can't get much more evil than that, in my opinion.
I've taken 21 trips to Kenya. I've come back broke every time I come back because I give everything away. you
Yeah,
know,
it's hard not to. How can you take from those people? I mean, my goodness, they're so poor, they have nothing, and then you're gonna take what little they have. Wow. And I can see why you've gone so hard against these people. And I think that any amount, and I've done shows about some of these movements before, dude, and the amount of people that get irritated with just mentioning some of these names, like Kenneth Copeland or whatever, and you'd be surprised. I'm like, you really are going to defend this guy? Have you
Mhm.
not seen some of the, I don't get it. I don't understand. My great grandmother, and bless her soul, she was just an amazing woman, one of the kindest people that you'll ever meet. But every Sunday, because when she got really older, she couldn't hardly get around as much. I think she was almost like 98 or 99 when she died. So she would watch on TV, and she would give her money to people like whoever was on TBN on Sunday.
Mhm.
She would give what little money she had to these people. And I don't know if that was the reason she did it. She wanted to tithe and do these different reasons or whatever. But it always amazed me to see that there's a lot of people that can't see past that, and especially older people. you mentioned widows.
Mhm.
It's kind of like the AI movement right now. AI, a lot of boomers are having a hard time distinguishing what's real and what's fake, you know, and so we have the same problem in the church, dude. It's like,
I know AI scares me. These poor people, they're gonna fall for anything, and it's starting to get really good. And I saw a video the other day of a dog biting a woman's hand, and their hand turned into salad. And I'm like, I can't even tell that this like was so real up to that point. And so, who knows what that's going to end up being? With the image of the beast in the Book of
oh
Revelation
man.
comes to mind. Who knows what it's going to be in 10 years?
Well, there won't be sound doctrine in 10 years, I bet, and people are going to
Mm,
be wishing that they had listened and heard a lot of these things because you can't trust anything that's in your face. Anything that's come out before like 2022
mhm,
about any kind of news or history or whatever, it's really hard to trust any of it because you don't know if it's AI generated, and
mhm,
and in order to find the image and find some of the arguments, you have to go and find the book. Like I've been recently studying, and I want to get your take on this, the Satan Little Season
mhm,
ideology, and I came across this one person that was sharing. They're like, look at this Chinese emperor mentions the sun and the moon switching positions and Jesus coming back and in this book, and they have this quote. And so I'm like, okay, well, I've heard missionaries use this before, but I'm going to go try to find the source of this myself and see what it is. Well, come to find out, the book mentioned is only in Chinese. You can't find an English translation of the book, and I don't know anybody that is able to do Mandarin Chinese translations or at the moment. So I can't tell you if this is legitimate or not. Now that the article you showed me that had the book that mentioned it in the book, where's that book? I want to know where that book is. And
mhm,
that's the problem nowadays. Almost everything that's presented before people seems really entertaining to listen to, and it seems
mhm.
like something that could be a reality, but you don't even know anymore.
Conspiratorial thinking has been like amplified, and
Mhm.
I love a good conspiracy. I always talk about the lizard people on my channel. Okay, so I love it. We have a lot of fun with that.
Your Facebook stuff is hilarious, man. You have the
I love it. I mean,
yeah,
I actually enjoy watching David Icke every now and then. Okay, so
yeah.
I love a good conspiracy. Um, and but the thing is, as Christians, we have to believe that the Bible is the standard of all truth. Okay. If the Bible does not teach that, or the Bible teaches contrary to it, we have to reject it. As fascinating as it may be, as entertaining as it may be, and no matter how captivating it is, we have to reject it because the Bible does not teach that. 2 Timothy 4:4 says that there's going to be a group of people in the end times. They shall turn away their ears from the truth and shall be turned unto fables. And the word fables there is like, a story, like a fairy tale. And I think a lot of the stuff that's out there today is nothing more than I guess we would call it conspiracies, but the Bible
Mhm.
calls it a fable. The little season idea that Jesus has already come back and we missed it, and it's just that's something that happened way back in the past, is a fable. It is not true. The Bible does not teach that. And see, because of that, people getting so captivated by these fascinating ideas that they err from the faith, and they end up shipwrecking their mind. I mean, you can get your mind too deep in this stuff. It's where you just can't even think clearly anymore. You see everything through the lens. Forgive the esoteric symbol there, okay? But you see everything. The Illuminati people are going to have fun with that one.
Oh, there
But
are
you see you
memes
see
about it.
everything through the lens of conspiracy rather than see everything through the lens of the Bible. I think you can get that fable lens on, and you can start reading your Bible through the lens of that fable stuff, and you'll always be messed up on everything. I mean, and it'll affect how you view the gospel.
Mhm.
Um, and so, don't get me wrong. I love a good conspiracy. I mean, the internet has been the most entertaining thing in the history of the world. But we have to, at the same time, maintain that the Bible is the Word of God. The Bible is the rock on which I stand.
Mhm.
This is not cunningly devised fables. This is the sure word of prophecy that we have. We can stake our soul on it, and if the Bible doesn't teach it, then we need to absolutely abandon it and reject it and call it out for the heresy that it is. And so the little season stuff, actually, I've been asked by several people to deal with that and talk about it. And I need to. There's a lady on her name is what is her name here? I got it right here. Probably Alexandra. I'm sure you probably have heard of her. She said a lot of her friends getting caught up into it. She asked me to talk about it, and I think I will. But I just don't. I don't think it's good sound theology. I think it's very problematic, and I think it needs
Here's
to be
the
rejected.
thing too, is it's not going anywhere, and
Yeah.
that's the thing. You definitely need to address it. I addressed two aspects of it on my channel the other day, because here's the thing. I've been studying this for about 6 months now to see, because in order to address it, it's really vast, because almost every person that is talking about it believes something slightly different about it and what it means to be in Satan's little season. Some people
Right.
believe that means that Revelation's over with. Some people believe that it means that there's no more mark of the beast. Some people believe that it means that the millennial, everybody believes the millennial reign's over with in this system, but there's a lot of different other aspects that did it. So I just addressed two of the aspects, which is they believe that 70 AD was the return of Christ, and it was the destruction of the temple. We heard
Yeah.
Josephus writing about it, but people believe that that was the second coming, and then the idea that Revelation, or I'm sorry, that the history has kind of been hidden, and Tartaria and all of that stuff. So there's a lot of different tie-ins with this stuff that makes it hard to address in one video.
Mhm.
But it can't. It's to me, I believe the same thing. I believe that all of the church fathers didn't believe that Jesus had already come back, that it was the great tribulation had already happened. And I don't think any of the church ante-Nicene church fathers even believed that. And they were, I mean, of course, they would have been earlier. They would have been right after the time of John the Revelator.
Mhm.
But there's a lot
Right.
of different things that, strike me as this could be a psychological operation. And a lot of the fruit of
Mhm.
that psychological operation is people arguing and being rude and hateful about it, just because they just want to come in your comment section and just tear you a new one. So,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, that's true, and it's a fact. So, and there's probably a lot behind the scenes, agents of chaos, divide, conquer, split the church, weaken the church, and interject a bunch of misinformation so that let people argue, and they just waste their whole life arguing a bunch of nonsense.
okay, tell people real quick before you go, just tell them where they can find your YouTube channel. I'm going to have the link in the description.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, our YouTube channel is just my name, Spencer Smith, and you can look up our flagship documentary series called Third Adam. We've got Third Adam 1, 2, 3, 3X, and 4, and we'll be working on 5 before too long. And just go check all that out. We talk about how the occult has infiltrated the local church in the last days, and we talk about all kinds of crazy stuff there. So you'll enjoy it. Just check out my name, Spencer Smith.
Thanks a lot, man. Have a good one, dude. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to, brother. Let's do it again, and I want to talk about some all kinds of crazy stuff with you. I
Yeah,
want to pick your brain on some wild stuff, man.
let's do it. Let's do it. Sounds good, man. Sounds exciting.
Okay,
Talk to you soon, bro.
thanks, brother.
All right.